Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you all so much for the support that you've been giving me lately. I've been getting lots of subscribes, follows on Twitch, which if you're not already, make sure to follow me over there at twitch.tv/metallurgy. You guys have been leaving a lot of comments lately, and luckily they've all been positive. I haven't had anything negative to say, so the most frequently asked question I've been getting has been about WeakAuras, add-ons, and macros. So we're going to be going over those today. So we're going to start off with macros, and then we're going to lead into what add-ons I use. I'll show you all the add-ons I use, but I'll kind of just go over basically the ones that I use just for PvP mostly. The other ones maybe I'll just throw in the description. You guys can check them all out there. And then I'm going to go over the WeakAuras. So let's go ahead and get started with our macros. So one of the macros I use first is for my fire elemental, and this kind of shares the same macro as I do with my Ice Fury talent. So basically I just tie in my Ancestral Call, which is my race's just ability that I can use. And so instead of having to press another button, I just cast these together since it's off the global cooldown. And so Ancestral Call has a 2-minute cooldown, so you got to be careful of where you put your racials. So I put Ancestral Call with Ice Fury because Ice Fury is 30 seconds, and so 2 minutes is divisible by 30 seconds. And so I should be able to, every 4 Ice Furies, be able to get an Ancestral Call out of that. Or I have it tied to my Fire Elemental in case like the times aren't correctly adjusted. So this is 2.5 minutes, so it's not properly at the same time, but this is okay to have because it's a big cooldown, and so I want a lot of power tied to my major cooldowns. Now I also have these macros, these two here. You don't see them because I don't have my pet out, but they're for my pet. So the one on the left here is for my stun, my earth elemental, because I'm spec'd into Primal Elementalist here. My elementals get extra abilities, and so my earth elemental gets a stun, which I have right here. So pound show tooltip, all one word, /use, then you can just copy this. I'll post all these in the description as well so you guys can copy them. And then for the fire elemental, you get an ability called Meteor, where it summons a meteor and it does AoE fire damage. So again, show tooltip, /use, and then Meteor. I also have a secondary one here for the Storm Elemental when you use Tempest. This is, I just have it this way because I have an AoE build for like doing dungeons and PvE content, but you should never really take Storm Elemental in PvP content. Now, a probably mostly used macro that I use is an @cursor macro, and this is mostly for my totems. I also have one for my earthquake. So basically all this does is you do pound show tooltip /cast @cursor, and then you type in the name of your totem, and this will make it so wherever your mouse is here, you can place a totem. You don't have to click the totem and then click where you want to put the totem. So this saves you a little bit of time, and it's just very easy to use. So I use that for my Earthbind totem, my Stun totem, Static Field totem if I'm spec'd into it. Basically any totem that you can place. And again, I also use it for Earthquake, which you shouldn't really ever have to use in PvP, but there are some niche situations where you might want to use Earthquake. So like maybe getting someone out of stealth, or maybe in like a battleground, like I have the Storm, where there's a lot of casters, and you can cast a few Earthquakes because it has a chance to knock them down, and you're also doing AoE damage. So a few situations where you want to use it, but not that many. Now let's go ahead and get into our add-ons. So as you can see here, I have a lot of add-ons, but there's only really a handful that you're going to need for PvP, and you might not even need them. You might just want them. A good one to start off with would be Battlegroundenemies. This is for Battlegrounds, if the name wasn't obvious. This will show you basically everyone on your team, and you can have it for everyone on the the opposite team as well. And so you can see all the healers, tanks, DPS, the classes, the specs. You can click them and it'll click the character, so you can check out like how much health they have, determine whether or not they're geared. And so you can pretty well determine how a match is going to go basically just off this add-on. I have it disabled right now because it was giving me some errors, but for the most part, it should work fine. Now, the damage meter I use is called Details. This is the most widely used damage meter, and this is the one that I recommend. I've had the most success with it, and it has a lot of utility that you can use, which is right here. This is my Details damage meter. Dontcast, this is one that I've been getting asked a lot about in the comments. So when I'm attacking someone, and say like a Ret Paladin, and then they use Divine Shield, they're immune, and you can't hit them. This add-on will pop it up here, so that way you can see it, and it'll let you know, basically, hey, don't hit this person because they have like a maybe damage decreaser or something that's gonna basically just negate all of your damage. So like Grounding Totem, if you attack a Shaman and Grounding Totem pops up, boom, it'll show it right here. Super useful for Battlegrounds and Arena, it'll be nice as well. Now, the primary add-on that you're gonna be using for Arena is Gladius, which is right here. Been all over my screen the whole time. This will keep track of when the enemy team uses like their trinkets, when they use major cooldowns, and this is basically your main way to track your DRs on the enemies. So like if I stun someone with Lasso, it'll show Lasso here, and so I'll know like, hey, Lasso is DR'd. I probably shouldn't. I could maybe get like maybe one more stun off, and then I can use my Cap Totem, maybe stun him again, but after that I shouldn't use it anymore because then the DR is done. And it'll keep track of all that over here, and it'll let you know when the timer is over. So it'll also keep track of like your root DRs, your silence DRs. It'll keep track of all of that. Super useful. I don't really like to have this enabled at all times because since I do a lot of content, you can see it's obviously in the way a lot. But you can change the settings so it doesn't show up unless you're in Arena. So now the next one would be Nameplate cooldowns. I love this add-on. This one's super useful. You can customize it quite a bit too. What this does is when you're fighting an enemy, say like in a battleground or something, and they start to use cooldowns, it'll show the cooldowns above their nameplate. Like say I'm targeting my guy right here, or if I'm fighting someone like this guy right here, above their name it'll show all of the cooldowns that they've been using, and it'll show their trinkets, and it'll show all the dots that you have on them as well. And so that can be very handy, trying to keep track of whether or not you can like so like for instance for rogues, it's very useful because I'll know whether or not they use Cloak of Shadows already, so that way I can kind of predict like, oh, he already used Cloak, he already used Trinket, I can pop off some damage on this guy and he's not going to be able to do anything. Maybe he can vanish, but he's just going to get out of my dots anyways. Nameplate SCT, this is a scrolling combat text, so if you're wondering like all the numbers appearing on my screen, where I get that from, it's from this add-on. I think I need to customize it a little bit better to make it so it's not so messy, but I just got this one recently and I kind of like it because it'll show like the icons next to the damage, and it'll show you like how much damage that specific spell is doing. That can be pretty handy. Again, not really necessary, but just a nice little handy add-on that helps me keep track of things. TrufiGCD. If you haven't noticed already, at the bottom right of my screen, which I should have been mentioning in my videos, you'll see spells coming up. So if I use like Earth Shield, you'll see it come up down here at the bottom of the screen. And this will basically kind of let you guys know what abilities I'm using in what order, so you can kind of keep track of like what I'm doing in a fight. And so like maybe if you're wondering like, oh man, what did he do there to do that damage, or how did he get out of that fight and still be alive? What did he cast in order to get out of there? You'll be able to see all that down here, and so you can like maybe clip it, slow it down, check out the spells. So this is more so for you guys than me, but I can also use this as well to make sure that if you don't have like WeakAuras or something, then it'll let you know your previous abilities, and you can customize this quite a bit as well to let you know like how long you want the abilities to show up for. Like I have them disappear after so long, So that way they're not just always there. WeakAuras, but before I get into that one, I also have Dejacharacterstats. This basically will customize your stat screen a little bit better. It'll average out like your gear a little bit more. It'll show you all your secondary stats and whatnot. So it'll also show you your gear level here on all of your gear. So that can be a little useful. Again, not necessary, but so now the WeakAuras, the big add-on. This is the biggest add-on I think I use. Type /WA after you get it. You can load up the WeakAuras page, and you can see here I have all of my add-on or my WeakAuras enabled right now. So these are all the ones that I have active. I have a couple meme ones here, so they're not really necessary. So like the skill issue detected, just like a meme, you know, with Ian Hezekostas, where he said like, you know, you're dying and you're wiping in dungeons and stuff. Well, frankly, that's a skill issue. That's where this comes from. And then meatball mode, that's when I proc my ascendants and just throw out tons of lava bursts. So that's just stuff for me. But I have buffs down here. This is a group WeakAura. So I have my Earth Shield, Lightning Shield, Improved Flame Tongue weapon. These will let me know whether or not they're enabled. So, you know, sometimes you lose track of this stuff up here, and you can just quickly glance down and see whether or not you need a rebuff. This one here is my Ice Fury. So when you use Ice Fury, your next 4 Frost Shocks are going to deal additional damage, but also because I'm spec'd into Flux Melting, I also keep track of that, which is this left one here. So when I use a Frost Shock, it gives me Flux Melting, which increases the damage of my next Lava Burst, which I use for my burst rotation. So I always make sure when I use Primordial Wave, I always get out at least a Frost Shock, so that way the damage is buffed. And that's like 20%, so that's quite a bit. So you always want to make sure you have a Flux Melting before you use your Lava Burst from Primordial Wave. And then I finally have, well, not finally, but I have Surge of Power as well. So this one will help me keep track of whether or not I have the Surge of Power buff active. So Surge of Power, if you don't know, is very useful in utility. So if you cast a Frost Shock with it enabled, this is after you use an Earth Shock, Elemental Blast, or Earthquake. So if you use a Frost Shock, they freeze. If you use a Lava Burst, it reduces the cooldown on your elementals. If you use a Flame Shock, it can spread. And those are the main ones I use, because I don't really do Lightning Bolt or Chain Lightning in this build. But those 3 are very useful. They're actually very good in utility. And so I need to make sure that I'm keeping track of that. So like if I use an Earth Shock, but then like maybe I'm, you know, I'm doing some defensive stuff and trying to run away, trying to help out a teammate, maybe I'm tossing some off heals, and I'm like, wait, shit. Did I use an Earth? Do I still have Surge of Power? I don't know. Instead of looking up here, trying to go through like maybe 2 rows of buffs, I can just quickly glance over here and be like, oh, I can just Earth Shock him or I can just Frost Shock him real quick and I'll freeze him in place. And then I have 2 other minor WeakAuras up here. So this one will glow and let me know whether my Earth Shield is completely depleted. So I also have it down here because I want to know just like passively whether or not I have it, or like how many charges I have. But then this will glow and let me know 100% that like, hey, you need to get Earth Shield on now because you're not going to be getting like any heals from attacks. And then I also have this one here, which is Focused Insight. When you cast a Flame Shock, it reduces the mana cost of your next heal and increases your healing effectiveness by 30%. So that's a pretty decent sized chunk of healing. And so when I notice like I'm in the middle of a fight and I have my Earth Shield on, I'll be like, oh man, I got a Focused Insight I can use. And I'll try to quickly maybe hex them and get off a heal roll fast. That way I can like take advantage of that. You want to try to take advantage of that as much as possible. But you always want to make sure your Earth Shield is on, because your Earth Shield increases the healing that you do to yourself. So if you use Focus Insight without Earth Shield, you're kind of messing yourself up. That's why I have these together. I have some of these. I think these 3 I posted on, or no, these 3 and this one down here I've posted on Wago, which is the website, wago.io. And I think I need to post these ones on there as well, so that way if you guys want to copy these, you can. And if you want to like move them around, all you literally have to do is just like click the WeakAura. You can drag it around. You can change the size down here. I have them pretty big because I like obvious modifiers, but some people don't like that as much. So tons of customization. It is pretty substantial, and it's pretty overwhelming at first. Like, you're gonna be like, what the fuck, this is like some coding shit. But just, you know, you got to take some reading through, just scroll down, see what things do, try to make sense of it. I've done computer programming in the past, so it was pretty easy for me to pick up. But for you guys, maybe you want to just kind of read through something, or you could just copy mine and just adjust it. But that's all the WeakAuras that I use. So I will post all of this down in the description for you guys to copy and for you guys to check out. Let me know if you guys use any macros that I don't use. Maybe there's something you guys use that I think would be helpful. And maybe any add-ons you guys use that you think are also helpful in PvP. Again, not just for me, but for you guys as well. You could share it amongst the community. And WeakAuras, let me know if there's any WeakAuras you think are pretty cool that you think help you out a lot. And yeah, so I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks.